actually, as some of you may be aware, vertical events and RIU, we've just had a massive first half of this year. We had our RIU Explorers Conference in Fremantle, went over 2,000 delegates. We had our RIU Sydney Conference 6 weeks ago, go to 1,700 delegates. And in between all of that, we decided to become an international conference brand, and we launched our first ever show in Singapore, the Future Facing Commodity Show, which also was remarkably successful, and we're looking forward to getting back over to Singapore. But of all those shows that we do, and they're big and they can be quite stressful at times when you've got 120 exhibitors, the show that we really love the most is actually this one. You know, there's not many shows you can wake up in the morning, definitely not in Singapore, and look out the window and see that beautiful beach. You know, for some of us West Australians, we look at it and go, it's almost as good as City Beach and Cottesloe and Scarborough, but it's pretty good for a Queenslander. But like, all this wouldn't happen without an amazing team, and you would have just seen the video that Shane put together and all the work that he does to ensure that all the presentation slides run smoothly. So we're lucky to have him, and you would have heard Chrissy Morrissey read out the traditional owners' welcome to country speech, and she'll do a great job, I'm sure, over the next couple of days. We've also got Charm and Andrea, who do all the hard work. And I know most of you think that Stewie and I kind of just wander around and crack jokes and have fun. Well, I'm on my own now, because Stewie was the mastermind behind the Singapore conference, so he's actually been working really hard. So we have a great little team at Vertical Events, and we really enjoy this conference. We really appreciate your support and the commitment. And the conferences do actually generate lots of opportunities. And I think back to a small show that we're doing at the moment in a regional area in the southwest, a town called Busselton. This is in Western Australia, 2 hours south of Perth. And it's in October last year, and Tony Rivera, who has been at this conference many a times for Azure, he got up and he gave his presentation at that Busselton show, and he had just encountered some pretty encouraging lithium rock chip samples on his project. And he didn't think much of it, because the Southwest Conference is maybe just a bit smaller than our Gold Coast show. And so there was maybe 100 people, 120 people in the room. On that day, his wife was having a hip replacement operation in Perth. So he finished his presentation, he walked back to his exhibition table, and he thought, oh, how long do I need to wait here before I get in the car and drive back to Perth and make sure my wife's fine? And suddenly these two guys started approaching his table, and he could see that they were definitely targeting Azure. And he's thinking, oh, these guys are not retirees, so obviously they're going to try and sell me something. And they walked up and they put out their hand. They said, Tony, loved your presentation. Nice to meet you. We're from SQM. First time he'd met them, 5 months down the track after meeting them, they put $20 million into Azure Minerals. So you never know what opportunity exists at these conferences. And some of you have been following Azure. They're on a pretty good run at the moment, where when that first handshake took place, I think their share price was 26 cents, and now their share price is $1.15. So these things exist at conferences. We really appreciate all the people, all the companies who get involved that make it happen. And in saying that, it's now time to acknowledge the great sponsors that we have at this show. And first and foremost, we've got the team from Wilson's. To those guys, to Rob and to Craig, thank you so much for your support. We really want to build something with Wilson's. It started out in Queensland. It's a big broking house now across the whole of the east coast of Australia, and it would be well suited for this conference. So we're looking forward to building something with those guys. We obviously have had a long existing relationship with the Lynn partners, Jeff Easton and his team out of New York. They don't often come over to our conferences, but they like the branding association, so we appreciate their support. It's very important that we cover all components of this world that we're in at the moment. So our ESG sponsor, Social Suite, are on board, and Brad from Social Suite, he is a tremendous supporter, a bit like Lynn Partners. They sponsor all our conferences. Got a new sponsor on board, and if you look at your lanyards that you're wearing at the moment, we're lucky to have PMT Refinery. They're just based about 30 minutes north of where we are at the moment, so it's good to have another great Queensland company involved. They sponsored some drinks for some of our presenting companies last night, so we really appreciate the support from the team from PMT. Got a great group of media partners. We've got Wally Graham at the back. He'll be roaming around with the Resources Roadhouse. We've got Jed from Chapter 1. He's making sure the live streaming's working, and that's going out across to 200 or 300 people around Australia and international now that we've got the Singapore database. Now we've got the white noise guys. You see at the front desk, there's some nice water bottles supported by them. And we've got Republic PR. They got a great article for us in the Courier Mail yesterday. So looking forward to a good couple of days. Thanks again for your support. Call up. I know you're all much more looking forward to seeing Chrissy on the stage than me. So I'll call her up and let's get the show rolling.
Gentlemen landed on the Cocos-Keeling Islands. He described the beaches there as being hypnotic and heavenly. The Kimberley is a region of huge contrast, and every part of it is just so beautiful. And if you can, give yourself a bit of lead time, some planning time, so you can save some money. So you don't leave empty-handed. That last picture of me in the car driving, I do a show called Destination WA and another one, Explore Called the Nine Network, was up in Kimberley. It was just before the pink diamond mine closed down. And I did buy myself a pink diamond and it's sitting in my safe at the moment. And I threatened to sell it last week to pay for our large tax bill that we have. And he who must be amused said, put that bloody diamond back in the safe. It's worth bloody more than anything. So I've got that little diamond sitting there. That was very exciting. I'd forgotten about that. Thanks, Shane, for popping that one up. For those of you who I haven't met yet, yes, my name is Christina Morris here, and I will be your person, master, mistress, whatever it is, whatever it takes, of ceremonies over the next few days. I am a bit of a hard taskmaster, so for those of you who are new presenters here on the Gold Coast, I will give you a 2-minute warning. And then I will stand up at 1 minute and then I will throw you off the stage regardless of what the ASX said. So you have been warned, Samuel, and you're going to be our leading speaker today. So we lead by example, if you don't mind. It's lovely to have some newbies in the room and lovely to have some old faces back as well. Keith, nice to see you've got a friend with you. Di, did you end up finding Bruce or did he still bugger off and he's outside? Oh, congratulations, Bruce. Well done, because she's been waiting a long blurry time down the back for you. And we've already had some really interesting discussions in the room as well. Now, there's a couple of dad jokes going around at this point in time, so I warn you seriously that I've been talking to some of our presenters and their humour level is perhaps not the best as it should be, but at least that'll keep us amused over the next 2 days as well. And there may be a little bit of discussion over the next day about some match, not footy match, what do you guys call it? What's your real name for the particular sport that you like to play over here? Because you, young Gary, look like you might enjoy sport, correct?
I do, yes. State of origin.
So you're a Queenslander or from New South Wales?
Queenslander.
So, all right, so let's just get a show of hands first. Who's the Queenslanders in the room? Oh, Jesus, okay, so a few. And if you need a scarf, Ian, stick your hand up. Ian's actually come with his outfit on, so we know where he stands. So he's up the back there, which is lovely. I actually had a blue suit to put on this morning and thought, one, I should not wear that because there may be an issue and some of you may kind of do something awful to me. But I noticed there are a couple of New South Wales people that are going to take to the stage this morning. And one of them is going to be first up and he will introduce our talk that we have this morning, our first discussion for you, because it's not just investment opportunities. There's also going to be a little bit of knowledge and insight into the investing world. So Craig Brown, would you like to come up and join us, please? Oh, and while Craig's coming up, I just want to point to as well, Jackson mentioned a couple of our really good conferences that we have. This is the next one that's coming up here. It's Techno. It's being held on the 1st of August and it will be here, and that we're really looking forward to. I was having a chat with a few of you in particular and we're talking about some of the investment potentials there. This next few days, we're going to be very resources heavy. And these guys started me off with some dad jokes before. So we talked about Wilson's being our big supporter this year and we're really grateful to have them on board. They're really eager to support explorers and miners. They're based on the East Coast, so they've got offices Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria. Where do you reckon this guy comes from? Yeah, poor little thing. He's from
I'll
the
give you
New
one
South
guess.
Wales office. Let's see if we get him into maroon or marauder, however you want to describe it tomorrow. But Craig has got a pretty big title up there. If I go through it, what's your Head of Natural Resources Corporate Advisory. He is from the New South Wales office. He is passionate about the state of origin, and he may in fact go for New South Wales. So he's going to welcome us all here officially today. Would you please say hello and welcome him?
Thanks, Chrissy. I feel a bit outnumbered here now, given this amount of Queensland supporters in the room, but I'll carry on. Good morning, everyone, and a big thank you to Vertical Events for hosting the Gold Coast Showcase for resource and invested companies. As Chrissy said, I'm Craig Brown. I'm Head of Natural Resources at Wilson's. We're the broker sponsor for the conference, and our firm is, as Chrissy said, it's across the East Coast. We have a long history. We actually started in Queensland, so we've got a 125-year history. We have offices in Brisbane, the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Hervey Bay. So we've also got a standout at the front there, and there's about 15 of us here today. So feel free to come to our booth at any time. Stay g'day. There's a lot of guys there that know a lot about resources, so feel free to drop by. We're internationally connected with a firm called Craig's Investment Partners. We have 30 billion in assets under management, and we have 150 staff. Alongside that, we have 40 equity partners. Within resources, Wilson's has recently expanded our resource business, and we've actually hired people in Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne to work out that strategy. Sam Catalano, before I introduce Sam, I'll just give you an example of something that I was involved in back in 2017. I was marketing gas in WA for a company called AWE, ASX listed, and the gas price that I was marketing at the time was $2.50 to $2.90 a gigajoule. Who can guess what that same molecule is worth today? Anyone want to have a guess? $10.50. So in a period of 6 years, that's a fourfold increase. That's equivalent to gold moving from $1,650 an ounce to $6,930 an ounce. Iron ore going from $100 to $420, and copper going from $2.55 a pound to $11.55 a pound. So significant amount of increase in commodity prices over that time. And that's what we're excited about. Like at our firm, we're really growing the resource business. We've also got obviously other areas like healthcare, technology, and industrial firms. But our focus at the moment for the firm is just to focus on the resource story. Sam Catalano is head of our natural resources research team. He's had significant experience in research and also working on the field. He used to work at Mount Isa Mines 20 years ago. So he's had a significant experience. We're very excited about the next decade for resources. We think that there is a real opportunity for investors to make a lot of money, given where we are in the cycle. There's a good 10, 15 years of EV revolution that's about to take place. And Sam will share with you on behalf of Wilson's what makes up some of those good opportunities. So with that, I'll just pass it over to Sam and welcome Sam on.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Craig. So look, I'll join the quorum of people who are excited to be here to hear about the next generation of resources opportunities. I should point out that it's actually my 10-year wedding anniversary tomorrow. So when I told my wife I was going to be down the Gold Coast for that, she's probably one of the people who's not excited about this conference. So there is one. Anyway, so look, let me, I'll gloss over these about Wilson's. Craig's already done a good job of telling you a bit about us and what we're doing. And what I thought I'd do this morning is, rather than just give you a sort of our outlook for the resources space, is more to sort of run you through how I and we as a firm think about the things that we want to look for, the metrics that we look for when we meet new resources companies. So what I've got up here is our framework for the types of valuation metrics that I would look for when looking at different styles of resources companies. And obviously a resource company spans a whole gamut from prospectors, explorers, developers, through to producers. And you can see there that the primary metrics that we would use to when we're assessing value for each of those different firms within the resource project lifecycle changes. So you can't just assume, use one through the whole life cycle of a resource exploration development through to produce a company. That does change as the company evolves. But first, a word on prospectors, which isn't in that graphic that I just mentioned there. So there'll be a lot of companies that I would class as prospectors that we'll hear from over the next couple of days. That's a company that's obviously exploring, but the definition, in my mind at least, is pre-resource, pre any form of mineral resource or reserve. Now, look, these companies are the foundation of our industry. Exploration success is basically the best bang for buck you can get in terms of value accretion from a share price perspective. So it's about finding the guys that are obviously going to have that success. But what I would say is from an investment analyst perspective, so from my perspective, it's very difficult to be quantitative, to give you a hard and fast valuation on prospectors, on drill results, because really it comes down to the qualitative, do we think there's something here, something in the ground? And there's a few different overlays from that you can look at with that, but it's hard to be specific. There's a lot of gut feel involved when you're talking about this very early stage of the life cycle of a project. I put there, look, I'm originally a mining engineer, so I have a lot of affinity and love for geologists. But what I would say to you in the audience is you'll probably hear from a number of geologists over the next couple of days. Geologists are always excited about the property that they're working on. It's always highly prospective. They're always very, very interested and excited. By definition, or they wouldn't be working there. So I would probably take sometimes with a grain of salt and try and dig a bit deeper, no pun intended, on what the geologist is telling you and what potentially could be there. What we're trying to answer, the questions we're trying to answer when you're assessing a prospector in their presentation is, do they have something there? But then secondly, is there a conceptual pathway to that resource potentially actually being economically extractable? Because the resource is of no use to anyone if it just sits in the ground. Right, so explorers, moving on. So this is where we get to the point where a company has a resource of some description. And then we start to look at metrics like EV to resource or EV to reserves. So enterprise value being EV, not electric vehicle. So you can see there that you'll probably see a few charts that some of the companies over the next couple of days will put up showing their EV to resource and how they compare to various peers. And I would say that, yes, that is a type of metric that we can use at the early stage of evaluation, but use it with caution. Now, I've put there a chart of, there's about 20 or 30 lithium companies in that chart there showing their respective EV to resources. I've taken the names off so I don't pick on anyone in particular. But nonetheless, you can see the variation across that. Some of those projects are high cost, some are low cost, some require significant amounts of capital to actually develop, some don't. So there's a lot of other factors that come into this. So when you have a resource, it answers the first question I mentioned earlier, is there something there? But it doesn't necessarily answer the question of, is there a conceptual pathway to extract that? So again, use that with caution. Moving into developers, and this is typically companies that have got to the stage of their first economic study, whether that's a scoping study or a PEA or a pre-feasibility study and so on. Then you'll usually get some metrics around what the capital cost is going to be, what the operating cost is going to be, how long the mine life might be, or field life in the case of oil and gas. And then you also might have a marker of an NPV, a discounted cash flow valuation for the project on what the company thinks it could be worth based on different commodity price assumptions. Now, again, I would use that with some caution also. And you can see here in this chart, this is called the Lassonde curve. This is how a company typically progresses relative to that valuation. They have exploration success, company re-rates. Then as the project is started to be invested in and developed, it becomes more about project risk. So the project takes a break. But what I would say is, and some of the companies in the room might not like me saying this, but when you're looking at a pre-production developer, it it needs to be trading at a big discount to its DCF because you've got all that project development risk there. And if the company isn't, then that's a problem. So a big discount to the nominal NPV of project for a company before they built the project is sort of the price of entry of needing to think about actually investing in that company for mine. Finally, there's producers. I haven't got much time left, so I'll rush over this quickly. But basically, that chart there, what it is a chart of Rio Tinto. The orange line is the forward earnings forecast that the market has had at each point in time for the forward 12 months at any point, and the blue line is the share price. You can see the two track together very closely. The black line is EV to EBITDA, a typical valuation metric. And what you actually find is that there's very little correlation in such a cyclical sector as resources for producers with traditional valuation metrics. It's all about the direction of earnings, the growth of earnings, where commodity prices are going. Can the company actually grow production or reduce costs? So it's about that earnings direction rather than necessarily, strictly speaking, just pure valuation. I'll jump over these because I think I'm out of time, and I'll say that's enough from me. Looking forward to hearing from the companies, and enjoy the conference.
There's a lot about leading by example, but you did pretty bloody well because you've still got 8 minutes to go. You sure is there anything anyone would like to ask him? Any questions you've got?
This little counter here told me I was out of time, so can I?
We don't like that one then, do we, mate? Have another crack. What else? What would you like to cover off on that you think is important for everyone in the room?
Yeah, look, the other things I was going to mention, because I talked a little bit about some dry stuff there, but what are some of the other things that we look for? Because it's not just all about valuation metrics. There's some sort of qualitative issues here as well. So what do we look for? We look for quality management. You look for project developers, guys and girls who have done this before. That's incredibly important because projects inherently have significant risks, and knowing where the gremlins are, as it were, is very important. Secondly, it's looking at what we call optionality. So you'll often hear the big resources guys like the Rios and BHPs talk about project optionality. And these are the types of projects they like to invest in, ones that have this project optionality. So that stems from having typically a large scale resource or a resource that can grow over time. And it's this intangible idea that, yes, there's a starter project. We know what the value of that starter project is, but what other projects potentially could be invested in to leverage off that resource base in the future. And that is incredibly important, because just knowing what a value, if the value is never going to get any bigger, then that information is already known by the market. It's digging about what comes next as well as something that's incredibly important to look for.
Right. Thank you so much, Sam. Would you put your hands together for Sam, everyone? And Wilson's. And there are a couple of Queensland supporters in the room. Sam is actually based here in the Queensland office. He's wearing as close to maroon marron as he can. There was a big discussion on the ABC this morning, was how to actually pronounce. I'm not even going to try because it just confused me after that. But for those of you that would feel uncomfortable perhaps talking to a advisor from another state that wears blue, you can all line up at Sam and he will have a chat with you. Okay, so the guys will be there. Guys and girls will be there. All right, this fellow coming up is also wearing blue. Our commiserations are perhaps to you. This is Glen Diemar. He's the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Australian Gold and Copper. Now, before he takes up the mantle, so I'm going to hit the buzzer for your 15 minutes and I'll stand up at 2 minutes. I'll hit the bell at 2 minutes and I will stand up at 1 minute, and that's right, I'll chuck you off afterwards. So what are these guys about? I can tell they live very close to their project, so their rate of work is really high. They're exploring for copper and gold. They've got 5 great targets and they have potential to take their tiny little market cap to very big heights. Would you please make him welcome, everyone, to kick off our day?
Well, in Sam's intro, we're starting at the bottom here. So I'm certainly a prospector. I'll make no account for that. And we love being a prospector because that's where you can get near-term, very sharp results and have incredible capital growth and return on your investment from which I'll show you a few examples. So I'm a confused Queenslander because I was born in Gympie, right near the Gympie Gold Mine, and we moved to Sydney when I was 6, which wasn't my preferred place to live. So as soon as I left school, we jumped out and moved out into the bush to Roxby Downs. So we've been on the ASX for two and a half years. We listed at the start of 2021, and we've been working in New South Wales for a long time. We've been here originally as a private company for about 7 years before that. And that's important because a couple of years ago, there was a big capital boom into New South Wales, and that was a huge drilling boom in New South Wales, and that led a pegging rush. And it's the biggest pegging rush that we've seen in New South Wales probably since the 80s. Definitely the biggest drilling boom in New South Wales since the 80s. And if you weren't in New South Wales before that, then you probably don't have the good quality ground. So it's really important for New South Wales explorers to understand how long you've been there and whether you're on the right belts or not. We are a tiny company with 5 million market cap, but we think that's where our opportunity lies. I'm going to show you that we've got some incredible targets that I'm very excited about. Thanks, Sam. And that is important because if I wasn't excited about them, I shouldn't be up here, exactly as Sam mentioned. So we've got a very clean capital structure. We are focused solely right now on the Cobar Basin, and the reason for that is all the majors are there. Sorry, not all of them. There's lots of majors there. It's a mining district. New South Wales in the last 6 months has had 4 mines approved in New South Wales, and the shortest discovery to mine is the Federation deposit, and that was under 4 years. So that's just north of us, a deposit held by Aurelia Metals, and my non-exec director led the discovery of that deposit. 4 years in New South Wales is quite a short, or 4 years anywhere from discovery to mine is a very short time frame. So these things can happen quickly in the Cobar Basin because it is a mining district. And we hold the largest land position of any junior in the Cobar Basin. So we're kind of like the worst house on the best street, and we like that position. We hold a lot of stock. The top 20 is very tight, and we've got Goldfields there. A couple of us directors hold a lot of the stock, and we do that because we believe in what we're doing. So everyone's got a board. We've got a board. There's lots of executives out there. It amazes me how many new IPOs have been out there in the last couple of years, and it amazes me where all the executives have come from. I really just want to show you Adam McKinnon here. He's our non-exec director who led the geology department and business development for Aurelia Metals for 8 years. He left when Aurelia Metals was still 45 cents. Now they're about 12 cents. They're doing great things. But Adam McKinnon, while he was there, he led 5 very major discoveries. And during that time, now, 4 of those discoveries have been either mined or are in development. So this is a belt that has had over 100 years of mining since 1870, 150 years of mining, but we're still finding new discoveries here. And that's really important. And these are new discoveries that turn into mines. There's a big difference. Because we're so small, cash is everything. We are very conscious of cash. I ran a private explorer, New South Resources, for 5 years before Australian Gold and Copper. And why that's important is because cash is everything, because we have to go to the Wilsons and proposition them to raise us money, and that costs everyone. Dilution is the main killer for prospectors like us. So we don't like to do that if we don't have to. The way we save cash is we don't pay ourselves huge salaries, and we share offices with our sister company, Magmatic Resources. Now, our corporate costs for the 3 quarters of this financial year was $450,000. That's sitting at about 50%, 60% of the average. And we do that because, so by sharing offices, and not only that, by sharing offices with another company, we have lots of geologists in the office. So one problem that small juniors like us have is we don't have many staff. We have 3 or 4 staff. And after a while, you start believing your own bullshit, and you need to be challenged. So when you have lots of people in the office challenging your ideas, challenging your science, saying, look, I did this way, I've seen this before, maybe try this, you go and do that. So you need lots of brains in an office. It works really well. So New South Wales, has anyone here been to Lake Cargelligo? It is such a great place. The bird life is out of this world. It's one of the biggest lakes in central New South Wales. You get you get pelicans, seagulls, and it's quite amazing. It's a big bird watchers sanctuary. It's a little town, 1,500 people. It's a very proud town, but it's got the unemployment rate's about 3 times the New South Wales average. We are a welcome participant of this town. We love the first grade footy team, and I really invite anyone who's travelling through New South Wales to go there. It's very close from Orange, where our exploration office is, because we don't need a big office in a city because that costs too much money. From our office, or Dubbo or Parks, it's a very quick trip. You can leave at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and get there before sunset. And just that alone keeps our costs down remarkably. Our drilling cost is about half of what it is in the Patterson. My driller, when he goes to the Patterson to drill, he has to drive 800 kilometers to do a fuel run. When we're drilling, we use about 2,500 litres of fuel a day. Think about that, what that does to your costs. So our rate of work is very high, and my biggest risk to my business is killing one of my employees on the roads. So a 2-hour drive out to our projects is massively limiting our risk, our downside risk. This is an example that I was a fairly young geo when this happened, and everyone stood back and thought, wow, that is just sensational. I went through my master's with Maggie Hawke, and she was on the drill rig the day this happened. Sandfire, 4 cents on the 13th of March 2009. I'm sure you all remember it. It was in the next 1.5 years, they went to $1 billion market cap. That's what a discovery in a new district can do. Albeit it's a pretty wild example, but it can happen. You think of more recent examples, De Grey with Hemi. You've got to look at new districts. Chalice with their deposit just outside of Perth, but it's a new district. So you've got to define a new district, a new part of, or even a new part of an old district as an explorer like us. So the upside is remarkable. So how do we do that? We are in So this is Sydney over here. We hop over to Orange, where our exploration office is. Invite all of you to pop in there if you're coming through. And then we just go a couple of hours and we're in a major mining district where approvals happen very quickly. So all the mines you can see there are up in the north. That's 150 years of mining up in the north there. Down south, Peel have shown that the belts, the discoveries continue southward. They've had 4 great discoveries in the last decade. Mallee Bull is one that's incredibly high grade of copper. It's just a little bit deep, which is why it's not a mine yet. So then we pick up the largest package of ground in the south of any explorer. There's virtually no exploration done there previously. BHP was there in 1980. They drilled 3 holes on one of our projects, got 36 meters at 4,000 ppm lead plus zinc, semi-massive pyrite, and then they walked away. And it was a vertical hole. No one's been back since. It's just incredible. So just looking at this middle diagram, we are the smallest company on the best street. All the discoveries are up north. Glencore is selling the CSA mine, which is the highest grade copper mine in Australia. It's been operating for 50 years. They are selling it to a New York listed money box called Metals Acquisition Corp for $1.1 billion US. Sandfire Resources, which I showed you in the previous slide, grew out of a discovery just like this. They have sold or gotten out of all of their exploration ground around Australia, except for the Cobar Basin. We are a 5 million market cap company, much smaller. So we've defined this huge volcanic complex with 5 great targets. Now, the Federation discovery by Australian Metals was found on lead in soils and IP geophysics. Lead in soils and IP geophysics. It's not overly difficult. We have 5 incredible targets with lead in soils and IP geophysics, all greenfields, all along the same strike, and they all have amazing surface geochemistry with gold. This is the footprint of Federation here, and this is the footprint of our near-term drill discovery that we're looking to drill next month. We've completed a huge amount of drilling since our IPO, and we know how to do it, and we know how to do it rapidly. And this project here is a very near-term discovery. That was up to 6.5 grams gold in surface. So just up the road, our drill targets 2 and 3. We completed drilling here in the wet 2 years ago when it rained and it rained and it rained, and got some great results. We showed that we are in a mineralized basin, 850 meters long. Okay, 850 meters long, and amazing drill targets. So thank you very much. And I'm in booth 31. Love to have a chat. So.
Well done. Congratulations. Well done. What sort of footy do you actually play down there?
That's rugby league.
Rugby. So he plays the right footy. That's okay. So they may be more interesting. It's a really interesting story. Congratulations. And thanks for coming up. Sam was nodding his head and pretty convincing there as a prospector, wasn't he, as to what's the upside of getting involved with them? Small market cap. Can they make it bigger? Do they have that nerosity? Let's see. Joining us next on stage is Nicole Duncan. She is the Managing Director of NickelSearch, and she's here to tell us about the work that the company is doing on their existing nickel mineral resource at its Carling Up nickel sulfide project, and also the really strong pipeline of greenfield nickel targets they've got lined up for exploration. She's also very excited about the potential for lithium as well. So let's make her welcome and hear what she has to say.
Thank you, Chrissy, and thank you to Vertical Events for having us here today. Before I get started, I thought I'd add my credentials to be up on the stage. My mother was born in Tully, sugarcane farmer's daughter, and my father was born in Gladstone. So I barrack for the Maroons, and because my parents make me. But you know, everybody has a reason, don't they? Anyway, so I'm here to talk about NickelSearch. We're a nickel sulfide explorer, and I believe that we are the best nickel sulfide exploration opportunity in Australia today. Now that's quite a big claim, and I'm looking to demonstrate this to you through 3 grounds. First ground is we're in a prime location. Second is that we represent great value. And third is that we have all the fundamentals in place to deliver. But first, let me take you to our beautiful part of Australia. So I pay my respects to the traditional owners of the lands on which we operate, the Wurundjeri people of the Noongar Nation. And I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So this is just outside of Ravensthorpe. It's a photograph taken by one of our founders in 1971. So to put Ravensthorpe into context for you, we have just down near Esperance, so about 6 hours drive outside of Perth on the way to Esperance, about just shy of 2 hours from the port in Esperance. The critical point about being in this prime location is that we are really well placed in terms of nickel sulfide production and lithium production. So NickelSearch is in the same greenstone corridor as IGO's Forestania production. So that's a nickel sulfide producer. And we are also 10 kilometres down the road from Allchem's Mount Catlin lithium production. So we're in a very good location for both nickel sulfide and for lithium. We are also have potential for VMS, which I won't speak about today, VMS for base metals, but very, very happy to talk to anybody about that prospectivity at the booth. In terms of NickelSearch ourselves, we are very well supported by our shareholders, including board and management and some very sticky strategic partners. And we are also very well funded to perform all of the activities that I'm going to outline for you today. We're just finishing a capital raise, so we've got good money in the bank. Another reason why we represent great value is something that Sam touched upon in the introduction. So I'm an explorer, and I'm about to show you the slide that Sam was showing, which is enterprise value versus tons of nickel sulfide, or tons of nickel, let's call it that. So when you compare NickelSearch's enterprise value with our tons of nickel, we represent very good value relative to our peers. Now, this slide you have to treat with caution because there are a number of our peers have pivoted into lithium, and that is going to be impacting their enterprise value. So it's not a straightforward slide, as Sam was saying, but I'm extremely happy to talk about how we plan to take our tons of nickel into production. So again, very happy to have that conversation at the booth. So we represent a very great value, and we'd love you to join us on the NickelSearch journey today. Another reason why I outlined that we're a good value is we also have all the fundamentals in place to deliver. And let me take you through those. These are our tenements. We're 108 square kilometres just outside of Ravensthorpe. And importantly for nickel sulfide, I'm not going to go into the detail of how komatiitic nickel sulfide forms, but importantly, if you could just keep the visual in your head of pearls on a string of pearl necklace. So you get one pearl, and then you get another pearl, and then you get another pearl. I would draw that analysis with pods. You get a pod of nickel sulfide, then another pod of nickel sulfide, then another pod. That's how komatiitic nickel sulfide form. For us, and I'm sorry that it's a bit small, but if you see here on the right, there's a little black blob called RAV8. I'll talk about that in a moment, but it's a high-grade nickel sulfide mine, and it produced nickel back in the early 2000s. So we have our first komatiitic nickel sulfide pod, and you can see all of the targets. We've got over 30 greenfield nickel sulfide discovery targets. looking at where the other pods might be forming. So we represent great opportunity in having a very strong pipeline of nickel sulfide targets. If I just talk a bit more about RAV8, it was a high-grade nickel sulfide mine that finished producing in 2007, basically because the nickel price plummeted. It produced 16.1 kilotons of nickel at 3.45%, including 9.6 kilotons at 5.83%. That's a very nice high-grade nickel mine. And we have it on our tenements. We're the outright owner. So what our plans are for RAV8 is we are looking, first of all, to extend what was the high-grade nickel that Tectonic mined. See if there's any extensions in, say, the first 200 meters below surface. But really excitingly for RAV8, no one has looked down plunge from the mine itself. And that's the first place that people should be looking, is going down along that basal contact point to see if there's another nickel sulfide pod sitting further along that basal contact. And that's what we're getting ready to do. It's a very deep hole. We'll be looking to get EIS co-funding to do that. I talked about the importance of location and the fact that we're in the same greenstone corridor as Forestania. And I talked about Komatiitics being the string of pearl necklace. And you can see that here with Forestania. First of all, you have Flying Fox Mine, and then you have New Morning, Sunrise, Spotted Quoll. So you can see these pods forming along the trend. But really importantly for IGO's Forestania and for NickelSearch is the depth. They go down to 1.5 kilometers deep. So it's not just about how much you have on the surface in terms of tenements, it's also how deep you are prospective. This is a cross-section from NickelSearch's historical mining. We do have a lot of exploration and mining on our tenements. You can see from the, and I'm sorry, getting small, but the little tiny black lines, they are the historical drilling that's been done, and it's been focused on nickel laterite, which is very shallow and close to surface. So those holes only go down to around 80 meters. The only deep holes are around RAV8, which you see there on the right. They get a bit deeper, down to about 300 meters, but no one's successfully gone really deep at Carlinga outside of Ravensthorpe, and that's what we're there to do. So our opportunity is not just about the 108 square kilometres of tenements, it's about the opportunity that sits at depth for nickel sulfide discovery. Talking a bit more about the work that we're currently doing. So just to orient you, here's RAV8, just a bit off the slide. We've got two prospects being drilled right now, Sexton and B1. I'll talk to you first about Sexton. At Sexton, we had historical drilling there. We knew that nickel was in that system. And so we put four RC holes into Sexton back in January. All four holes hit nickel mineralization, 3 of them at over 1%. We did downhole EM at Sexton, and we saw that there's a number of plates, meaning that there's a number of conductive sources in the ground there. The strongest one that we saw was what we're calling the lower horizon, and it was about 50,000 Siemens, which is a very strong conductive source. But importantly for our work, the EM survey, the conductive source goes beyond what the survey could pick out. So we're actually open going down plunge. What we are now doing is 2 diamond holes. We've completed the first hole and we're now in the second hole. In terms of what we saw in the first hole, as I said, there's a number of plates and we're calling them the upper horizon and the lower horizon. In the first hole, we hit mineralization in the upper horizon, so about 2 meters of nickel mineralization. And then when we got into that lower horizon, we hit just under 10 meters of nickel mineralization. And you can see the core here, including a part that is massive nickel sulfide. So we're eagerly awaiting the assay results from that first hole, and we're currently drilling the second hole. And we'll look to update the market as soon as we're done with that work. We'll also look to do downhole EM on these holes. We'll then move the diamond rig to another target called B1. Again, we had historical nickel mineralization discovered there. There were 3 holes drilled a couple of decades ago with nickel at over 1%. What we've done is in May, we had 7 RC holes put into the ground, and we've identified a structure to the nickel mineralization. And you can see here a cross section where we have hit the same body that was historically assayed. So the historical assays were 7 meters at 1%. So we're hitting into that same body. The deep diamond hole is looking to go the deepest that has been at B1. And what we're excited about for B1 is the fact that it's very high tenor. And what that means is if we can find a nice thick piece of sulfide where the sulfide was able to gather, it's likely then that the nickel will become a much higher grade, and we should, if it's there, see increases over 1%. We'll also do downhole EM once we finish that hole to see what's out surrounding the hole. So it's very, very exciting. We also have lithium prospectivity. I said that we were 10 kilometers down the road from Mount Catlin, and we had just finished doing ultrafine soil sampling, primarily looking at nickel sulfide, because that's what we're exploring for. And we had done that ultrafine soil sampling just over a subsection of our tenements. And so we were wondering how to understand whether or not we should look for lithium. And we gave the assay results to a very well-known geochemist, Nigel Brand, and asked him to analyze the results for indicators of lithium potential. Again, and this is just a subsection of our tenements. Nigel came back and identified 22 areas of interest for lithium for us, 5 of which are over, 5 of which he identified as high priority, and they're up here on the screen. And 4 of those are over 800 meters in length. So the next step for us is we're going to be looking at extrapolating the analysis out over the entirety of the tenements to see exactly where all of our high priority targets should be. And then we'll be doing boots on the ground, mapping and rock chip sampling. And we'll be looking to do that in the coming months because it's wet there at the moment. It's farming land, and really we're limited as to what we can drill. So it's a great time to do some very low cost work to look for lithium prospectivity. So to finish, I said that we are in a prime location. We are in a location that is known for nickel and it's known for lithium. We represent great value. We have a very deep pipeline of targets, and we are in the process of starting to drill those 30 targets. And we also have all the fundamentals in place. We've done all of the groundwork since our listing just 18 months ago. And we have great confidence in the work that we've done to identify those targets. So I'd encourage you to come and speak with me at the booth. I'm strategically placed in a corridor to the main room. So please look out for me as you're heading towards that main room. I'd love to have a chat at the booth. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. And I like the way she tried to play to your loyalty there as well with the Maroons connection. Well done. Good on you. I like it. We're going to South Australia now, which coincidentally was the host, despite its AFL links, the host of the very first 2023 State of Origin. Petratherm is the mineral exploration company that committed to developing a portfolio of high growth potential projects. And the company has recently discovered high-grade rare earth at its Comet project, and they also have several drill-ready targets in the Northern Olympic Dam copper-gold province. This fellow here is their CEO, Peter Reid, and he's going to present on the company's current exploration and drilling projects. Would you please make him welcome?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I can claim neutrality today, being a South Australian, but we did host the first one, and Queensland did win, of course, so that was a great start. Today, I want to talk to you about Petratherm. I think we are a company that really is positioned for growth. We've got a really exciting project portfolio, some really interesting rare earth, and some copper gold to talk to you about. Our compliance statements. Here, I'll just point you to the JORC information that you can see there, which if you want some more information about the company and particularly about particular projects, those ASX references are shown there. Now, just a corporate snapshot of Petratherm. We've got a market cap of about 17 mil. So, we're sort of modestly market capped. Share price is 7.5 cents. You can see here our share price on the bottom there. It's slowly tracking up, particularly over the last sort of 6 months. And I think that's people taking positions in Petratherm, realizing we've actually had some really great exploration results. And we've got some fantastic targets that we'll be testing over the next 6 months, which I'll shortly talk to you about. Our board, I've got a very old and highly successful board behind me. Track record of success. All of these people been involved in startups, discoveries, sales, mining, right from the beginnings to the end. Most recently, Simon Taylor is involved with with the MD of Oklo that was recently sold to a Canadian to take over bid, and even more recently, the two Simons there, directors of Chessa, which was subject to a takeover. Don Stevens, a founder of Musgraves, another takeover just in the last week. So these guys have, started companies up, found the resources, on-sold them or developed them. In fact, our chairman, Derek Carter, who's really the doyen of South Australian geology, was the founder and managing director of Minotaur Resources, which discovered the Prominent Hill deposit, a world-class copper gold deposit. That deposit's just recently been mined. It's been mined by Oz Minerals the last 20 years and recently taken over by BHP and still an operating mine and will run for another 20 years. So who are Petratherm? We're in a South Australian-based company. We've got two sort of project focuses, copper gold, that's our knitting, that's where we came from. I was a Minotaur employee back in the day, a Prominent Hill discovery. Derek, of course, on our board. And we've got two large holdings there, the Woomera project holding right in the heartland of the Olympic province, close to known discoveries, which we'll be drill testing shortly, and the Maple Creek project in the northern Olympic domain area. The other company focus for us is the Comet project area in the northern Gawler Craton, which we initially acquired a few years ago looking for gold, but with our regional exploration work, we actually found quite a lot of rare earths, and of course, rare earths are very topical right now. And we have another rare earth position at Makanipi. Just to, this is a zoom in, I'll talk to you about our rare earths to start with. At Comet, we've got a very large holding there, close to 2,000 square kilometres. And what we did up there was, a couple of years ago, we went and we realised back in the 90s, when people went up in the northern Gawler, there was a Gawler gold boom, some of you may recall. It was all about calcrete sampling, sampling those carbonate layers in the soil there, looking for gold. We now know that really only worked over only 10% of the area. So that area may have been prematurely sterilised based on that old sampling. That sampling worked to a degree. We still had many discoveries, such as the Challenger deposit, which was over 1 million ounces of gold. But what Petratherm did that was different is we drilled through that cover into the top of the clay zone, which starts at about 5 meters depth, which is the top of the ancient weathered basement rock. And we found by doing that regional study in the western area, we drilled at 400 meter spacing, we not only found a lot of interesting gold anomalies, but also a lot of high rare earths contained in those clays about 18 months ago, which led to a discovery. And we've now found two major rare earth occurrences, Meteor and Artemis. Meteor extends about 2 kilometers by 1 kilometer. It's very thick in terms of its depth and size potential, and also has very good grades. And what's really important about this is those two prospects occur with very discrete geology. So we've got rock sequences which have intruded into the bedrock below. We can see this in the aeromagnetics because they're quite magnetic. These are layered mafic intrusions, and they're really highly elevated in rare earths. So we've got a reason for those rare earths to be there. And we can see from the aeromagnetics that those intrusions, there's a whole nest of them that occur east of where we actually made our initial discoveries. So a big part of what we're doing going forward is actually testing these new areas too. Not only have we made 2 discoveries, but we've actually got a whole heap of upside potential going forward. This is a close-up of that Meteor prospect area. This is 100 meter space drilling. All of those holes are drilling over 1,000 ppm total rare earth oxides. Those of you who know what the clay rare earth grades, that's a good number. It's about 26% of that are the magnet rare earth oxides, which are the pay value rare earths. Mineralization here starts at about 3 or 4 meters depth, and it extends typically about from 5 to about 20 meters depth, and averages about 11 meters over that prospect area. So we've got an area here, it's quite discrete, 2 kilometers by kilometer, 11 meters thickness, grades over 1,000 ppm total rare earth oxide. And we know below that we've got these apatite bearing rocks, which are highly elevated in rare earths. That's the source of the rare earths. So not only do we have, a resource in the clays, but potentially got something in the primary rock below, and that'll be subject to some future exploration. Here's a cross-section at Meteor of the various drill holes. You can see the various drill holes here. I've got a pointer. So this is sort of 4 or 5 meters depth, 1,000 ppm type grades through the weathered clays into the sap rock below. And indeed, you can see the mineralization extending in this case down into the bedrock below. Just quickly moving on to Artemis, which is about 5-10 kilometers away from Meteor. All the holes here are showing very high grades, 13 meters at 1,500 ppm and 3 meters at 0.2% total rare earth oxides. We've just completed a drilling campaign at Artemis, infilling that area and also extending it. Currently, it's about 1.5 kilometers by 800 meters, but it's open in all directions, so it could be a lot bigger. So we've got two areas here, which are, where we can certainly define resources in a very short time frame. That drilling's just been completed with assays due in about 6 weeks' time. Another cross-section of Artemis showing the homogeneity that you're seeing here in the rare earths. That blanket can just be dug up, with a bulldozer, heap leached, very simple, low-cost operation. So just to summarize, we've got thick occurrences at shallow depths. We've really only just touched the surface. We've only explored less than 10% of the area. And we've been testing these new areas out to the east because we may have only just found the tip of the iceberg. A lot of upside potential there. We've got one landowner. It's on pastoral lease country. We've got the Adelaide to Darwin railway line running through it. So in terms of, being able to develop and dig these things up, I think we're in a very favorable jurisdiction moving forward. Now, I'll just sort of move on to our other arm. We're a rare earth explorer, but our knitting really has been copper gold historically. And we've spent a lot of time building a position in the Olympic copper gold province. It's a world-class copper gold province with many, major discoveries, with Carrapateena, an operating mine, close to 1,000 million tons of copper. Up here, Oak Dam, BHP are going through resource drilling as we speak. They've got 12 rigs up there, a crew of 150 people. That's probably going to be over another 1,000 million tons of copper sitting here. Emmy Bluff, MEICG with Coda Minerals developing that resource. And this is our ground position out through here. Now, this colored image is a gravity image, and these copper-bearing rocks occur with iron. So that iron, of course, is heavy, as is copper. So they show up as the red zones. So you can see these various red horizons. These are the promising targets. We've got a number of very promising targets on our leases too, which I'll talk to you in a bit more detail. In the southwest corner here, we just completed a gravity survey, the Arcuna area. That was just a fuzz prior to that gravity survey. You can see some fantastic gravity features appearing, particularly this chap here, which is potentially a world-class copper deposit. We don't know until we drill it, but it's a fantastic target to be testing. This is a close-up of our Woomera project area there. This is gravity again, showing the detail. This is our tenement boundary just through here. And these are 3 historic drill holes. All of them intercepted copper, quite thick intercepts, 60 meters at 0.3, 94 meters at 0.2, including 42 meters, at about 0.3. Just between those 3 drill holes, if you look at the scale here, there's actually about 500 million tons of copper sitting there. It's low grade. If that was at the surface, you'd mine it. But because it's at 800 meters, the grade isn't there. What we need to do is find the high grade portions of those systems. And you can see with our gravity here, we've got these fantastic gravity features that extend. We're quite confident these are probably copper systems too. And you can see these sort of conjugate structures, the northwest structures, the northeast structures. They're the feeders, they're the faults providing the fluids up into the bedrock, providing the copper into that system. We know too from Coda's drilling that when you get closer to these structures, the grades increase. So in their case, they've had good intercepts of up, 1-2% copper and half a gram gold. These targets will be tested later this year, and we think there's huge upside potential. Those things extend for kilometres. What you can also see on this graph here is this beast down in the southeast corner, which we call our Rocky Well target. When we model the gravity of this, it's quite comparable to Carrapateena. This is a gravity image of the Carrapateena gravity response on the side here, showing the gravity response. It starts about 600 meters depth. We know it's heavy and dense, and to get that kind of anomaly, you need to put a dense body at about 3.15 tons per cubic meter density against the shallower density rock surrounding. This is the Rocky Well target on our leases. It's a bit deeper. It starts at about 1,000 meters. But we need to put a body as big as Carrapateena, or in fact deeper, bigger, because we've got the densities here are even higher at 3.4 tons per cubic meter to actually mimic the response to the gravity that we see. So we have potentially a Carrapateena size gravity anomaly. Well, we do have a Carrapateena size gravity anomaly. Starting at, it's deep, but 1,000 meters these days is not a challenge. At indeed Oak Dam, most of the drill intercepts that BHP are drilling starting at 1,200 meters. So it's whilst it's a deep target, this is something that wouldn't be considered 10 years ago. It's something that, you know, the big guys are really keen on exploring. This is a target we'll be testing in a few months' time. Now, I'll just sort of finish up and talk about our Maple Creek project holdings, which is another large copper gold holding in the Olympic province in the northern part of that province. This is a slide, a gravity image again, of the eastern half of our holding there. We've got about close to 3,000 square kilometres. It was an area that had been poorly explored. We did a lot of gravity survey work. This is the gravity being shown again. You can see a number of gravity, nice gravity features here. We tested 2 of these targets, Area 13 and Area 5, and we've got a lot of alteration, a lot of the sort of alteration you find associated with these iron oxide copper gold systems, but we didn't, and low grade copper, we didn't find the high grade stuff. Because they're the big systems, you know, how do you target in on the portion which is potentially where the ore deposit is? So what we trialed was a thing called SQUID EM technology. So SQUID's a very high powered conductivity survey. And we ran it over these gravity anomalies, and we found here, I should just actually, if I go back one, Olympus here. So you can see this very interesting, discrete little guy poking up through here, Olympus. And it extends about 2 kilometers. It's about a 3 milligauss gravity anomaly, which is comparable to Prominent Hill deposit. So it just stands out of the background, this fantastic dense body. We ran this EM survey, and we got this fantastic conductor on the flank of the gravity. So we've got a conductive plate, which could be sulfide. And when you look at the details of these copper gold systems, the copper always sits in the flank of the gravity, never sits in the middle. It always sits out on the flank on one side. And so this plate extends, it's been modeled, it starts about 600 meters depth. It extends about 2 kilometers, and it then dips down another 2 kilometers down towards the center of that gravity anomaly. So I think this is a real, first class, I think it's one of the best copper targets anywhere going around the world. And we're talking about world-class size targets here. We're not talking about, 5, 10, 20 million tons of copper here. We're targeting 1,000, million tons of copper. We're talking for world-class size copper deposits. This target will be tested. We have a rig hopefully coming out there early in October. So just to finalise, our rare earths are ongoing. We've just completed drilling. We've got results coming in about 6 weeks' time. There'll be ongoing drilling going there, along with our metallurgical work and looking at how we optimise the leaching work to get the rare earths out. We've got those gravity targets at Woomera, which we'll be testing probably towards the end of the year. But before that, we have our Maple Creek targets, which we'll test from October. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much. I think we really are positioned for growth.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to David Riekie, Executive Director, Adavale Resources. And while he's making his way up here, there are a couple of other events going on in Australia as we speak in the next 24 hours, besides this conference and besides the State of Origin tonight. Anyone here from Tasmania at all? Any Tasmanians in the room? It's winter solstice time, so the big nudie swim is on tomorrow. So they've got 1,500 people, they reckon, jumping nude into the Derwent River tomorrow. And you have to have a little red cap. And this fellow here has actually been down in Tasmania, and he just cleared his calendar to come up here. It's actually, there's usually someone else speaking, but it's him this time. He's cleared his calendar and come up. And I was looking at him before, thinking he's got a surprising little glow about him. I was wondering if he'd been doing any practicing nude swimming down there, but he assures me no. The glow that he's got is from all the fabulous light from their latest little discovery and their results just washing over him. So should we find out more about that? We had a little bit of a dispersion. All right. So David Riekie is this fellow's name. As I said, he's Executive Director of which company? Adavale Resources. So please remember that one, Adavale Resources. They are tasked. And this is, I was talking to you about dad jokes earlier on today. So when I was reading out the little intro that they sent to me, it said, We are tasked with finding the next sulfide nickel elephant. And I thought, oh, we must be tasked. I went, no, it's a dad joke. Dad joke?
It's very bad
It's a
job.
dad joke. So it's tasked with finding the next nickel, sulfide nickel elephant at the company's Kabanga Jirani nickel project, which is all the way over in Tanzania. And that pretty much surrounds the world-class companies, the world-class 60 million tonnes at 3% nickel Kabanga deposit. Now, BHP, we heard the boys talking about that earlier today. BHP has taken a real liking to this emerging nickel frontier. So let's hear a little bit more about it. And would you please make David very welcome?
Wow, what a wonderful introduction. Chrissy's done my job for me. The glow, I think, is probably the fact that I did dive into the water down in Tasmania, and I take my hat off, my cap off to all those people that are doing the nudie swim tomorrow. Quite crazy. We've actually got, we've got an image up here where if you look very, very closely, you might see some of our geologists herding up these nickel elephants that we think we've got on our ground. Another dad joke, sorry about that. Moving forward, an important statement here, please read it at your leisure. But I think I'd also like to reference the fact that we've got a number of announcements that we've made over the last year, which probably sets the scene as to what this presentation is all about. So sequentially, you'll see us moving through the process that we've been through to get to the point we are now at. And as Chrissy was saying, yes, we are basking in the glow of having some near-term success with our drilling program, 100% strike rate at the moment. I'd like to think we can emulate that over the balance of the program, but realistically, we're very happy with the fact that we've hit massive sulfides where, more importantly, we thought they were going to be. The investment highlights there just show that we're not only blessed with a very significant nickel opportunity, but we also have uranium in our portfolio, which at this point in time, we show that we've got an exposure to both those critical minerals. We have a dominant exploration portfolio, which you'll see very shortly on our map. And we're surrounding the elephant. The elephant is known as Kabanga, as Chrissy's pointed out. The nickel drilling campaign is well underway. We've done a little bit of RC drilling to make sure we're in the right rock types, but the real money shot comes back to the diamond drilling that we're undertaking at the moment. Experienced management team. I think experience with the right experience is actually most important here. We've got a beachhead in Tanzania. We've also got some deep experience in both nickel and Tanzania on our board. A snapshot, corporate overview. We're sitting around about 15 million market cap, $2 million in the bank, and we have some options that are likely to be in the money very shortly, and that should rake in probably $3 million for us before September. Grant Pierce, our chairman, spent a lot of time in Tanzania and has a much recognised affinity with the people and the programs that we're undertaking there. We like to stay alongside the community and understand what they need. And that lightning rod in Grant has been fantastic for us, initially identifying the projects and now basically maintaining that level of relationship and ongoing association with the country. My background, corporate, been in nickel, and I think that the real nickel expert that we see on our board is John Hicks, who's discovered a number of significant nickel opportunities in Australia. Rounding out our team, Alan's a ex-investment banker, and Leonard's had a lot of experience from a financial footing in Africa. And both Gerald and Pascal are the hardworking part of our team in Tanzania. To operate in a country like Tanzania, you need to have that level of beachhead support and experience. Where are we? Well, we know where we are at the moment, but where we're going to is over in Tanzania. There's no direct flight to Tanzania from the Gold Coast, but it would take about 15 or 16 hours to get over there. It's a very attractive mining destination. It had actually gone through a bit of a dark past and probably about 2 or 3 years ago for about 6 or 7 years. It's emerged out of that, I think, with a renewed level of vigour and enthusiasm to re-embrace the mining economy that was really a very significant and key component in its overall GDP. It accounted for something like about 50% of the overall gross domestic product of the country. They would like to re-engage on with mining houses around the world and actually see that resurgence happen again. I think President Sami has actually indicated right from the outset that she sees that the mining investment needed in the economy will actually be the lifeblood for future mines being developed. There has also been a renewal of key management and officials within the various portfolios, and more particularly in the mining space. I think when you go into a country, you need to understand the ground rules and how you actually need to operate. So we've actually recognised, as have many other people coming into country, that the government is looking to have an interest in the resource and the value of its resources. And they've demonstrated they want 16% interest in any project going forward. So if you can operate with those levels of certainties, it's actually a good place to be. It has good infrastructure. It is improving, and more particularly, it's going to improve significantly around where we are. It's also caught the attention of America. There's a strong association and affinity with Tanzania through Barack Obama, but we've also seen the Vice President head over and welcome President Samia into the global economy, recognising that she's doing a good job, and they are also making it quite aware that they are looking to see Tanzania grow as a nickel explorer and developer and a provider of that strategic element into the world economy. You operate with a social licence in Tanzania, so we've actually taken a lot of time to actually work out those charities and those opportunities that are giving back to the community. We've chosen these three: health and Vaka Health, Bridge to Aid, and we're looking after our local school. We've also taken the steps to make sure that our commitment to the local contracts and employment opportunities extends to people and the services that we're needing to actually unlock our opportunity through exploration. So we've employed local geologists. We're using local downhole EM survey teams. Some of these terms you'll be familiar with now with the presentations prior. But we are strongly committed to partnering those host communities and putting back into where we can back into the economy. Now, this is probably a synopsis of what people have spoken about today. This is really the life cycle of how you find something of a meaningful discovery. You go through a process where it's essentially ground-based, use ground surveys, field surveys. We've actually been able to undertake a significant gravity survey over all of our ground holding. And that's approximately 1,000 square kilometres. That's pretty significant. So from that, we've been able to identify about 32 anomalies. Then we've moved into the space where we've used a helicopter to fly EM over those key areas. So we've really only had the benefit of half of those being properly investigated at this point in time. Again, it's a matter of actually prioritising and spending the money as wisely as you can, ranking those prospects with some initial drilling, then moving to what we've actually titled up here AMT. AMT does work well in certain areas, and we're thinking that's going to be a very powerful tool for us moving forward as well. Now, the important bit, the really exciting bit, and where it really sort of starts to understand what you've taken on by way of an undertaking, is the drilling. And that drilling is underway. And as Chrissy was saying, we've had some initial success, which we see we're basking in that glow at the moment. And we need to keep backing up on that. You know, having a few good hits is fantastic. It's actually very encouraging, but you need to work towards getting a resource. So as you can see from our ground holding here, it's very, very significant. And we would claim that we're the dominant holder of prospective nickel ground in what we would actually like people to recognise. This is the East African nickel belt. It is not just Kabanga. It is Kabanga, it is Adavale, and there will be others that will follow us. BHP had all this ground to start with. They've chosen to come back and make a significant investment back into the country. When those sorts of big boys come in and make those investments, they don't do it for a few years, they do it for a generation, right? It's a generational investment. They need to put the money in there. They need to basically put the infrastructure in place. They can't pick up their kit and move it elsewhere. They need to make sure that it is a strong and viable economy. So that gives us a very large tick with what we're trying to do right alongside this opportunity. So those licenses adjacent to this monster, it's about 60 million tonnes at circa 3%. And I think you'll find that that will start to grow. There's some noises actually that they're doing additional drilling and like. But with all what we've got at the moment, it comes back to giving people a perspective of how large our ground holding is in and around Kabanga. And as you can actually see up here, this is where the red bits are the sulfides, which is the good stuff. And we're looking to have these sorts of structures, which we think have been profiled in our work with what we've done at this point in time. Now, as you can probably pick up on this particular slide, it looks as though the eastern flank has taken most of our attention. Well, that's correct, because it has. And we're seeing that these structures are, which we're calling the Lahuma trend, and down here, which is HEM4, are actually showing some real potential. Let's have a little bit of a closer look at Lahuma. This area, you can actually see this green outline. We're using copper as a signature, right, an indicator as to what we're going to find. Nickel migrates a bit too much, so we're looking at those sort of indicators that give us the best chance if we know there's nickel in this area. The black outlines there are the gravity. This is Lahuma Central. It's about 3 square kilometres, about 3 kilometres, bit over. HEM2, we're going to have to come up with a better name than HEM2. I really don't like that, but effectively Lahuma is where we've actually recently got that ground. HEM2 has done some initial drilling. Sulfides, right geology being intersected. HEM2 northeast, we've actually gone back and done our research and realised that other people are finding stuff in this area. East is another area that we're looking at. Again, by way of scale, it's a big area. Right? This is 10 kilometre strike. So we need to find the good bits within it. People that have actually drilled in this area previously have hit massive sulfides, and we're trying to emulate that, and that's exactly what we're doing. And that really is why we're very, very happy with what we're finding. You've got to be careful when you're using portable XRF readings. There's a proper indicator as to what the actual assay grades will come back, but we're seeing between 1% and 2% in this. That's good. You need those sorts of grades to actually make something stand up. 4 metre intercept, obviously we want more. I think anywhere between 5 and 10 metres at that sort of grade is going to see us actually be significantly re-rated really quickly. What we want to do is we want to keep building on this. A second hole, it's hit the similar sort of structure. We've got these high grade veins within this core here. We're very excited about what we're seeing here because this has come from somewhere. Right? This sort of grade just doesn't pop up. So we're seeing this. So what are we doing? We're taking a slice through the section at Lahuma, and we're seeing that we're actually getting a level of correlation around here. Now this is a slice. This is a 2D section. What you want to know is that this extends further. So what we're trying to do in this next slide is show that these lines through here are our AMT. As you can see, we've been really busy getting this lining up. We've had a look at those sort of historical holes that have demonstrated the right rock types, but more particularly the massive sulfides. We think this trend extends over a 1.5K strike in this particular area. The whole area, this whole trend goes for a lot further. Down at HEM2, I'm calling this the bookend because effectively you've got Lahuma Central at the top, further north, and we've got HEM2 further to the south. We've got all the really good indicators that suggest that something special is going on down here as well. And if we can start stringing this together, because we've already got historical intercepts of both massive and disseminated over pretty good intercepts that extend, like I said, about 10 kilometres. So to say that we're a little bit fizzed up at the moment is a bit of an understatement because this is starting to come together. You know, we're starting to see this replicated structure. If I can just go back to the other slide. Right, you're seeing this being delineated over quite a significant area. So we just need to find more of it and put it together. So that's what we're doing. And we're basically stepping our program down further to the south around HEM2. And that's where that section is. It's not just isolated to that area. What we need to do is make sure that we don't lose focus and actually make sure that we're just looking too much in one area and we're extending. So what we're going to do is expand the drilling program at Lahuma Central. We're going to continue the drilling down at HEM2 and northeast. Use RC as an indicator as to where we're finding this right rock type. Do the downhole EM. All of our holes, all our diamond holes are going to be cased, so we can actually look to actually get more information with the downhole probes, find out where we are seeing in the structure. It's all about understanding geology. Next step is really just assaying, getting our results and finding out where we sit with regards to how good the tenor of this nickel is. And from what we've seen thus far, it's pretty good. And I think that's about it. We're in an economy that's looking for decarbonisation, electrification. We've got the right elements. We've got neurology and we've got nickel discoveries that are happening at this point in time. And we've got uranium bonus, which people can actually look on our website to find out where we sit. Thank you. If you need any more information, please come and actually join us at Adavale. But you know what? We've got the nickel pincer happening between Nicole and myself in that little corridor there, we won't let you go by without actually understanding Nicole. Thank you.
Sounds fair. Thanks, David. David Riekie, Adavale Resources. Did anyone in the room go to RIU Explorers in Fremantle this year? Any of you? A couple? Did you hear me introduce the next speaker here when we were there? It's Rox Resources. Did you hear me introduce them? So when I mentioned them, I said at the time that they had 10.5 million in cash. They were just beginning their drilling program. Would you be interested in investing in them? Did you? No, me either. Look at this man in his new suit striding down the side here. As he comes up the front, this is MD Rob Rahm. While he walks up the front, check out your apps. See how Rox Resources actually has progressed since February. So if you haven't seen them and you're yet to discover them, what they're doing is they're working to unlock the potential in their flagship 3.2 million ounce You and Me gold project, which is all the way over in Western Australia. It's got really striking similarities to Bellevue Gold, which most of you will have heard about. Let's find out from Rob about this high-grade brownfield assets with exceptional growth potential and exploration. Would you please make him welcome, everyone?
Thank you very much, Christina. And it's not a new suit, by the way. It is my old suit, and we're making sure that every dollar goes into the ground here at Rox. Look, I joined Rox about 6 months ago. There was three things that I thought we could do to dramatically change the outlook of the company. The first thing was that there was a joint venture structure that sort of sat over the sort of company's head for a number of years since 2019 when it was acquired. We had a JV partner that owned 30% of the asset. We owned 70%. And, you know, that kind of got a lot of people offside when they talk about investing in the company, because there's a lot of unknowns around joint ventures and how they operate. So I thought if we can amalgamate that JV, that'll put us in a different light to an investor, and especially some of your larger institutional style investors. And we did that in end of March this year. And now that'll be a significant development for the company. That transaction finalises in July, and that gives us a fresh focus on what we want to do with the company taking it forward, not only in terms of the near mine at You and Me, but also in the broader exploration package we have. There's significant upside within that exploration package too, and near mine as well. So near mine, we've had recent discoveries at Midway and Paddy's Lode, which we announced the Midway discovery just at RIU at the conference in February. And it went very much under the radar. And we mentioned it to a lot of people, keep your eye on what we're doing. You know, we were hitting sort of 3 to 6 metre wide zones at Midway, running at sort of 10 to 20 grams a tonne. We knew that, you know, with some of the areas that we've seen further to the south also had the potential to be able to, you know, expand our exploration opportunity within the area. And then Paddy's Lode was announced a few weeks later, and that was a 28 metre intercept at 35 grams a tonne. Now, we knew that the mineralisation at Paddy's Lode is, you know, generally at You and Me is between 3 to sort of 8 metres wide. So we did some diamond drilling and we followed it up, and we've got a 200 metre strike now at Paddy's Lode. And that looks to be an offset at the You and Me main lode to the south, which does open up a whole corridor of exploration for us. Now, we're focusing on going down a feasibility pathway, but what we're starting to see now with our exploration portfolio is that there is a bigger opportunity here at You and Me. This isn't going to be a 70 to 100,000 ounce per annum style operation. It is going to be a much larger scale than that moving forward. And as part of that, we are moving early in the ESG space, and Bellevue probably set out a very good framework for any junior gold exploration company to follow. We're making sure that we're going to be a sustainable gold producer, and that's going to attract a significant style of investor to the company. You and Me is located just north of Perth. We're about 100 kilometres southeast of Mount Magnet. The Penny West discovery sits to the south of us. That's Ramelius Resource paid about $300 million for Spectrum Metals, which owned that. I think that was about 2020, 2021. And they actually haul Penny West straight past our doorstep. So the big thing big two movements in our share price over the past 6 months have been the first in start of March, which was the discovery of Paddy's Lode, and the second one being the announcement of the amalgamated JV. So that's got us into a trading range now of around sort of 35 to 40 cents per share. That kind of sits where we were trading about 18 months ago. And I said to the crowd at the time, look, this is still a developing story. This is only the start of our journey. This is going to be a lot of share price growth from here on in. The combined company will have 334 million shares on issue. That gives us a pro forma market cap of about $120 million, with 3 million ounces of resource and still the exploration opportunities at Paddy's and Midway. That gives us a good platform to start from. The consolidated UME gold belt is something that really hasn't been explored over the past 30 years. The last mining campaign through this area was in the mid-90s, and it's been a fractured ownership of this belt since then. There's been some private companies, prospectors, and everything else. So there's been a lot of work in being able to build this into one portfolio, and there's not too many juniors that can sit there and boast of a 700 square kilometre portfolio over what is a highly prospective shear zone. The UME shear zone hasn't had a lot of follow-up over that time frame. You know, we've got assays out at Linda Gosson. Linda Gosson sits just north of Curran's Find, just to the south of the main UME project. There was 9 metres at 15 grams a tonne intersected from surface there. That hasn't been followed up. The area hasn't even been mapped geologically. We've been out there with the exploration manager and the team, and we see, you know, a number of quartz outcrops running through the area and a banded iron formation running through there. We think that is highly prospective for another gold discovery. So we're quite keen on getting the guys and the troops through this package. Now, the reason why it hasn't been explored over the previous management of Rox is because of the JV ownership. We only own 50% of it. Venus owned 50% of it. So there was always a debacle in and around who was going to fund the exploration going forward, and you know, both people had to contribute. So it was always put in a too hard basket. There wasn't a lot of work done on these, and I believe that there's many more Penny Wests sitting undercover here out at UME. And it does have a historical high-grade production profile from the operation. Consistently, the underground mines in this area produced at 10 plus grams a tonne. When we wanted to upgrade our resource, we wanted the geology team to take a risk and drill out what they thought were 2 highly prospective areas at the UME main project to be able to, you know, add a bit more high-grade material into any production plan we come up with. And straight away, we hit success with Midway, where we had multiple lodes intersected there, as I said, running between 10 and 20 grams a tonne. But the biggest opportunity we've seen was at Paddy's Lode when we intersected the 28 metres 35 here to the south. Now, as I said, we understood that there was a potential down dip component of that drilling. But when you're drilling 200 metres off the main lode in an area that's previously untested, and you come up with an intercept like that, when mineralisation to the south was previously thought to be barren, it does get everyone excited. Since then, we followed it up with diamond drilling. As I said, we've confirmed a 200-metre strike here on a single structure. Now, north at UME, what we see is multiple lodes of mineralisation. And what we've tagged to the south so far is one single structure running at sort of 3 to 8 metres wide at 8 to 10 grams. So what we're expecting here is a potential of parallel lodes through UME, and you know, additional ounces will come from that in the future. So the Paddy's Lode discovery, as I said, it's been very aggressive, our drilling campaign in looking to expand this. So the initial discovery hole was drilled here. We then went 20 metres below and we intersected the structure. We took the structural measurements. We drilled again 20 metres to the south. We then went 60 metres further south. and we did further diamond drilling, which we're waiting results on, 120 meters further south and 200 meters further south. The next campaign is we booked a RC rig straight away, and we're having a look at targeting potential supergene mineralisation through this area, because it does sit under around 25 meters of transported cover. So when you look at the area, previously there's no historic mining through here because the old timers had thought that there was no gold in that top 25 meters. So when we look at the drilling through the area, there is pretty much zero drilling. And it does open up quite a prospective corridor. What we have now is 900 meters of potential strike with this Paddy's Lode area, all the way out to the regional UME shear zone. And what we always found at UME main lode is as we headed further south, we always got higher grade material in the plan. So if we start transitioning this UME shear zone is really the controlling structure that has allowed all the fluids to come into this regional area on these splay structures. Now, finding that fault offset of the UME main has opened up this 900 meters of strike. There is potential for further fault offsets of that ore zone through that area. So we'll continue now to do a gradient array IP survey over the area. That'll give us a better structural information and a framework to work from for our next round of exploration drilling. Midway, as I said, it's kind of been forgotten about in the buzz that has been Paddy's Lode and the amalgamation of the asset. But this area is still highly prospective, and it does present a different mineralising event at UME. It looks to be a linking structure that runs between the Bunker Shear Zone that runs to the west and the UME main zone that runs to the east. And that linking structure between them was only ever intersected while we were doing some deeper drilling on the main lode. And there was two very high grade hits out in the hanging wall, and we followed up in and around it in the last campaign. And what we're getting is multiple hits here of sort of 45 gram meter plus style intercepts. So if you're looking at a 2 meter wide ore zone running at 20 grams, or 4 meter wide ore zone running at 10 grams, that's the style of intercept we're continually getting through this area, and that's perfect for underground mining. The link area is an area that we've been looking at infill our inferred resources, and that's been the focus of the main drilling campaign. And we're continuing now to infill that inferred material and improve our confidence in this resource to the point where, some of the intersections are better than what we even planned on, where we had 22 meters at 6.3 grams, and that included an 11 meter section running at 10 plus. And what we know at UME is the mineralisation continues at depth. So the deepest drilling here has been 970 meters deep, and it is still intersecting fantastic widths and grades. I've got no doubt that the deeper we drill at Link, that we'll continue to add ounces down dip at Link. And when we start looking at these areas of, Junction, and then even further south at Paddy's Lode, all these areas have that depth potential to them. So we'll continue to build confidence in the resource, and we'll look to expand this out quite significantly over the coming years. Now, the scoping study was put out in October of last year. I think there's a lot of upside that we'll plan to that. If we're looking at around a 70,000 ounce per annum on our scoping study, I thought we could potentially push that to 100,000 ounces per annum as part of our feasibility studies. But then if you look at a whole area to the south, that could potentially add a whole new second mine into this production plan. It has the potential to double that production outlook. And that's where I think the opportunity will be for Rox and UME in the future. Our regional programs, as I said, they're highly prospective, and I'll let you look through these yourself, but you'll see that there's multiple intercepts here of double-digit style grades. We do have some non-core assets that I think will add value through these when we start to look to go down a potential spin-out route or an asset sale. They're highly prospective for both nickel and for gold. So the focus for us moving forward is obviously to complete the transaction with Venus. And as I said, that completes in July. And then we'll look at focusing on the remaining of our exploration drilling campaigns. We'll have strong news flow out through June and July. And then we'll have a look at doing that gradient array IP survey and that geophysics to better structure our exploration plans for the second half of this year. Thank you very much for your time today, everyone. And if you want to learn more about Rox and you and me, come see us at booth.
Come here for 1 second. Mr. R, come here for 1 second. Can you just stand there for me? Can you guys all stand behind him, please? Just stand right there in the middle of the stage. I'm going to get a picture of you. I'm going to picture all the rest of you behind him. There we go. All right, so that's for us for social media. So if any of us actually make some money on you this time, if there's enough upside, we'll have a record of who was in the room at the time. You can all buy us drinks next year. Right, we've got one last potential for you, potential investment opportunity for you prior to morning tea and your sausage rolls. This is Tony James. He is the MD and CEO of Galena Mining and joint venture Abra Mining. He had a really busy year last year, sticking to his budgets and his timelines and everything else that he needed for their new high-grade Abra lead silver mine, which is in the Gascoyne region over in WA again, and made them all, nailed each and every one of them, didn't he? So he did pretty well. 2023 is also looking like another busy year for this gentleman. The mine is ramping up to full production. They're planning to achieve steady state production towards the end of this year. And he too, like Rob, seems to be a particularly smiley gentleman at this conference. So let's find out more, see if it might translate to our investment portfolios. Please make him welcome.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks, everybody. I'm a little bit of an anomaly at this conference because I'm actually a producer, so and representing a company that has actually got into production over the last couple of years. So on that Lassonde curve, we're right at the bottom and we're just going into production. So as this year ramps up, it's going to be quite interesting. The other anomaly, I suppose, is we're a lead mine, lead silver mine. So lead's not very sexy, but it's certainly something that's required in our community and particularly with batteries. And certainly our stakeholders and our offtake partners are very keen to get hold of this lead from the Abra mine, and it's all going very well. That picture on the front just gives you a good cross-section of what we're doing right now. We've been very busy for quite a few years now. We've probably slipped under the radar of a lot of people, particularly over here on the East Coast. What we did through the COVID period was we just rolled our sleeves up and got on with it, and we delivered this project last year on time and on budget. So there's a picture of underground ore, some stopes being drilled out, our decline, secondary crusher, flotation circuit, making some concentrate, our rotainers being carted down to Geraldton, and our first ship being exported out of the port of Geraldton. So our third shipment actually goes out tomorrow. So as we continue to ramp up. We have had a couple of little speed wobbles along the way this year, but this project's come into fruition very quickly, and we've used some pretty strong contractors to help us to get to where we are today, which we're very excited about. Very proud. I'm very, very proud of what we've achieved at this project over the period of time that we've put it together. Just a very a bit of a timeline from when we started from IPO to where we are now. This is actually quite a good slide to show at this conference because I think there's a lot of budding new producers out there that might like to see how hard it is to get to where we've got to today and the amount of work that you have to put in. 2017 was our IPO. There was about 36 kilometres of drilling at the time. 2018, we drilled another 12 kilometres, 2 mineral resource estimates, a scoping study and a PFS. 2019, Toho Zinc made a $90 million investment into our project to become our joint venture partner, which is very exciting, Toho Zinc out of Japan. 2020, the beginning of COVID, we had 13 banks lined up to debt fund this project. And then COVID came along and then 13 banks disappeared very, very quickly. It sort of happened overnight. So, and that's understandable at the time when you think about the risk profile and so forth and the uncertainty about what was going on in the world. That sort of made a bit of sense. Private equity companies, perhaps a little bit different in their risk profile, and Taurus came in and offered us a $110 million US debt facility to build this project. So that was an exciting time for us. 2021, another mineral resource estimate, that's the last one, financial investment decision, site access. And then 2022, we got on and we built this project and we delivered this project build. And this is the 5th mine that I've been heavily involved with building over my career. So the model that we used is very similar to previous successful models that we've built, that I've built certainly in my career over there. 2023 to date, we started producing concentrate at the beginning of the year. We probably picked a bad spot to go into this ore body. We had some trouble with some of the delays in metal production from there. And then in March, late March, the Gascoyne River got flooded and we were hit with a big rain event that effectively stopped us for the whole month of April. And that's certainly put us on the back foot a little bit, but we've now built a new plan. We've got a new plan together and we've got the rest of this year mapped out. We know exactly what we're doing and we've hit some significant targets in May. So onwards and upwards to steady state. And this mine certainly is a very significant deposit. It's 200 metres below the surface, has a lot of intrinsic value in the metal that's in the ground. It's just a matter for us to get it up and get it going and really get it going on an annual basis, and we're well on the way to doing that. If I look at this year, our pathway to guidance, as I briefly said before, we had that problem at the beginning of the year that we've now got through. May production, we set a whole stack of records in terms of metres mined, concentrate produced, underground stope production. We got up to 36,000 tonnes in May. And in June, we're well on the way to breaking just about all of those records. So we're well on the way in June. It's looking very good as we send off our third ship, concentrate ships off tomorrow. And for the second half of this year, it's all about getting up to steady state, get the plant up to greater than 100 and the mine up greater than 100,000 tonnes each month and produce between 37 and 47,000 tonnes of lead metal to get us back on track and to deliver our guidance that we plan. Interesting picture on the top right-hand diagram shows you where we've accessed the ore body at the very, very top. It's actually the edge, the whole thing's been tilted up. So this is one of the problems we had early in the year. We actually came in probably on the edge of the deposit and it behaved like the edge of the deposit. So in hindsight, we probably should have been a little bit deeper, but that's where we picked. It's pretty easy to be in hindsight when it's 230 metres below the surface, but we'll get through that and the rest of the ore body is looking very good. Bottom right-hand picture is a stope. It's a stope that we've mined. I think that was stope number 2. The little CMS on the right-hand side shows you how good we were at taking that shape out in terms of what we're mining. So we're probably up to stope 7 or 8 right now. So the stoping is really improving. And as the stoping ramps up, the grade ramps up. We just get out of just all being development and we get more stoping online, more production online. And once we get to about 70% production, 30% development, that the grades will really come to the party in terms of our production profile. This just shows you our guidance that we have in place. You'll find that online today in this announcement. You can go back and have a look at that and see where we're at. So our lead metal production guidance for this year is now 50 to 60,000 tonnes. This was previously published and we're still on track to deliver that for the rest of this year. So the really encouraging thing about this project, once we get this up and running and fully flying, it really is a cash maker. So we're really looking forward to getting to that state, into that steady state as the year goes on. Let's talk about lead. Lead's pretty interesting, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's a bit hard to get excited about lead, and I think it's a forgotten metal a little bit. So 88% of refined lead goes into batteries, lead acid batteries. You know, majority of EVs in the world still has a lead acid battery. I hired a hybrid car at Avis yesterday and drove down here. And what's interesting about the hybrid, I think it's an awesome little car, but the battery in that, the lead acid battery in that little hybrid Corolla is actually bigger than a normal battery because of all the stopping and starting and the control systems and the safety systems in the car. A lot of these cars still have 12 volt batteries, lead acid batteries. And why is that? It's because they're reliable, they're pretty cheap, and they're very good at what they do. So, you know, they still use them quite a lot. You don't hear about that much out there in the world because lead's pretty nasty. But really, I suppose the other thing is if it's not your cup of tea and you run out of tea and got to go down the shop and get some more tea and you go and hop in your car and your battery's failed, you have to buy a new one if you want to keep that car. So, you know, some of those things just don't change. It'll change eventually and we'll get to the other, you know, things will move on and in the world will change. India's a very interesting, so lead pricing and lead demand is driven by the developing companies, places like China and India. And India is an interesting example where they've come out and are really pushing their people to go down the hybrid line. And the reason for that is because they don't have the infrastructure to plug their cars into to power them up, but they can certainly go down the hybrid path to reduce their CO2 emissions. So there's some interesting things going on in the world. I think we've still got a long way to go for the complete transition to EVs, and lead has its place in the short term. So there's a picture of a Kia sole EV there with the lead acid battery sitting on the side. So the other thing that's happening is that there's some big demand for large BESS, they call them BESS, big ass electrical storage systems throughout the world, particularly in China, just putting in the world's largest 5G network. And that has a huge consumption of lead acid batteries to go into that network, and that's happening at the moment. So Wood Mackenzie is saying stable price forecast for lead next couple of years, 23 to 26 at around $2,150 a tonne. So we certainly see that stability. And interesting, in Australian dollars, you also see quite a natural hedge for the lead price. So what we find is quite a stable price. And it does behave differently to a lot of other base metals. And it's certainly something worth having a look at or thinking about for your investment portfolio. In terms of lead supply, we do see a slight increase. There's the reserves are diminishing, so we are seeing a slight increase from 2022 through to 2025, and then you'll see a drop-off in the world's lead resources and lead mines that are in producing. The red part of that graph represents the Abra contribution to lead in the world. The unique thing about the Abra deposit is the cleanest lead deposit in the world, lead silver deposit in the world. We don't have any nasties in our product. And our feedback from our Toho friends from the smelter is that they're very excited about what we delivered to the smelter in terms of environmental byproducts. So they're very excited to get as much concentrate from us as we can possibly deliver. The Ukraine war, one of the issues obviously is the energy costs in Europe because of the war, Russian war in Ukraine. So certainly some of the lead smelters are under pressure in Europe. So that may or may not influence us in the long run. It seems to have been quite resilient though during that period in terms of its price makeup. In terms of exploration, very quickly, we have drilled 4 holes to the north of the Abra fault. So the decline comes down, goes through the Abra fault, goes into the open and core domains. We've drilled 4 holes to the north over sort of like a very big area. And all of those holes have hit lead mineralisation. And one of those holes are the Ale prospects, about 700 metres from where we are underground there. So it's a sedimentary basin. The stratigraphy is very uniform. It covers a large area. It's all deep. It's all quite deep under the ground. So we've got a lot of work to do from an exploration point of view. And the other one that I think is very interesting, a bit of a sleeper for us at Abra, is that there is a gold copper indication sitting below the lead silver. So the green here is lead silver. Sitting underneath in the yellows and the oranges are gold and copper intercepts that we've never really followed up because it's sort of sitting underneath. Our plan is to put the decline down and drill from underground into those. So in the second half of this year, we plan to drill a couple of holes down into the gold copper in areas just to explore and see what that looks like. So our infrastructure, our strategy here has been build the mine, get it up and running, infrastructure in place, get the decline down, and let's go and drill for some gold and copper at the same time. So that'll start to happen later in the year as we go forward. So in terms of is one of the largest geophysical anomalies on Australia scale wide. And to be brutally honest, my geology friends that work with this and work on this area, they haven't got a bloody clue what that's there for. So, and nobody else really knows either. So we've got a lot of work to do, but that's a significant anomaly that needs to be followed up by us as we go forward. In terms of our capital structure, our issues, our speed bubbles that we had at the start of the year certainly have affected our share price. We've dropped down to around about 11-10 cents at the moment. Our enterprise value is 158 million. So I think we're definitely at the bottom of the trough. And as we ramp up this year, I think we should see a response to this as we go forward. And I'd like to thank all of our significant shareholders who have really supported us through this period, which has been awesome. And I look forward to repaying back their ongoing support. So just to set up to look forward for potential for us, for Abra and for Galena. We've built this project on time and on budget. We've had 3 shipments as of tomorrow. They may ramp up. We've set lots of records. June will probably beat most of those records. We've got all of our production plans locked in place through to the end of the year. And probably about 75% of those production plans through the end of the year are probably drilled out to 12 by 12 spacing. So we have a very high level of confidence in what the rest of the year actually looks like. So, and the Abra deposit is one of the cleanest and largest lead silver deposits in the world, and we're right in amongst it now. We're very busy. And Toho is our joint venture partner, and their lead concentrate goes to their smelter, Shigeoshima smelter in Hiroshima. Fantastic company to work with, very good joint venture partner, going very, very well. So in terms of our steady state guidance, and this is the big kicker for this project, 1.3 million tonnes per annum, that's what we're doing. We will get this thing up to an EBITDA of between 90 and $95 million a year, which is a significant amount of cash once we get to that steady state, which we will get to probably about halfway through the second half of this year. Just a closer, just to show you my 16,000 solar panels that I've got that provide 6 megawatts of power. I just want to let you know that there's 1.5 tonnes of lead amongst those solar panels. Thank you.
That's huge. That's very impressive, Tony James. Thank you very much for that. And Tony, don't go and talk to Tony about your rugby later on. He's not interested. He's a Freo Docker supporter. So he's got enough issues to deal with. He doesn't want to talk sport. He wants to talk mines and what he's doing out there. Thanks, Tony, for wrapping up this first part of the morning for us. We are going to take a break. I'll come around and ring the bell. You hear it, come on in. And after the break, we'll be talking salt battery technology, so storage for bigger panels like that. We'll also be going to America and lots of gold. So I'll ring the bell, probably about 15 minutes. Thanks, everyone.